Welcome to the Rock is George podcast. I'm your host, George Dionne, and this is episode 100. I want to thank you all from the bottom of my heart for making it possible for me to reach 100 episodes. I thank you, the listeners, the PR companies, the record labels, and the artists that have supported and appeared on the Rock is George podcast. Once again, thanks for tuning in. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, whether you're listening on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or one of the many streaming apps that we appear. Also, check us out at the loudest.com on the planet, knac.com. My guest for this episode is Robert Crane. He's the bass player for hard rock act Black Star Riders. Black Star Riders formed out of Thin Lizzy, but they've kind of taken on their own persona and sound after 4 albums. In fact, they just released their 5th album, Wrong Side of Paradise, on Earache Records. Black Star Riders is fronted by ex-almighty frontman Ricky Warwick, who also has a prolific solo career as well. So let's get on to learning more about Wrong Side of Paradise. Here's Robert Crane, bassist for Black Star Riders. So do you officially go by Robert Crane now? Because I've known you for years as Robbie.
Yeah, it's Robbie Crane, but my name's Robert. And what happened was somebody made mention about Robbie, and I got Robbie from Vince Neil. Vince Neil, when I joined Vince's band, my name was Robert all the way up to that point, and he started calling me Robbie, and I was like, "Who's Robbie?" And I would go, "Hey man, you know my name's Robert," and he'd be like, "Oh, cool, Robbie." So he would just call me Robbie. So that's how I got stuck with that name.
If I knew absolutely nothing about Black Star Riders, how would you describe the band's music to me?
It's a classic rock band with a newer style of rock and roll twist to it. It is Celtic in a lot of ways. It has an Irish, Scottish, UK-ish inspiration to it. And I think it's a fresh sounding band. I think it's positive, and I think our message is not necessarily political, but I think it's very today. I think we're very connected to what's going on in the world, and I think our singer Ricky Warwick writes from a different, interesting perspective. Being a European or being Irish, Northern Irish at that, and grew up in the Troubles in the 70s and 80s. He really brings an interesting perspective to the world today. And I think that our songs reflect very much, or a snapshot of what's going on in our world or the world at the moment that we recorded it. Yeah.
And of course, Black Star Riders was kind of born out of Thin Lizzy. And as the years went on and you guys released more albums, a little less of the Thin Lizzy sound was there and a little more of kind of what you say, your own unique sound.
Yeah, I think Black Star Riders, like you just said, initially was Thin Lizzy. They didn't want to do a record under the Thin Lizzy moniker, so they did it under Black Star Riders. And as I don't know, and I was saying this recently, I don't know that they even realized that it would gain its legs and traction that it did. And as it did, we got into our second and third record, I think they realized that the differentiation was vast and that it was time to move on from that. And like when I joined the band, I joined at the end of the first record's touring cycle after Marco Mendoza had left. And we were doing 50% Lizzy and, maybe even 60% Lizzy and 40% new Black Star Riders songs. And as we wrote more catalog and did more records, and the records did start to gain traction, we started to lessen the set. It switched, and now we haven't done any Lizzy, or maybe one song of Lizzy or 2 songs of Lizzy sometimes over the past 5 years.
How did you get the gig in Black Star Riders?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. Jimmy DeGrasso and I had done a gig together for an artist in Russia, and we met there, and he and I just jammed together, 10 shows, and then I never heard from him again for a year. And then one day I was out with my daughter shopping, and I get this call from Jimmy DeGrasso, and he's like, "Hey, do you play with the Pick?" And I was like, "Yeah, I can play with the Pick." And he's like, "I want you to check out this band." And so he sent me some music, and I was like, wow, I'd never really heard. I mean, I grew up in Los Angeles, and I'd always played with US based or LA based musicians. So I'd never played that Celtic style of music. And, Kingdom of the Lost off the first record, and Judas and songs like that just really caught my attention. After I played them, I auditioned for the band, and they had a bunch of bass players come down, and for some reason they picked me, and I was like, cool. So that's how I got the gig. And I mean, I didn't know. I mean, I knew Damon Johnson. I'd met him through Kerry Kelly when he was in Alice Cooper, and they were in Alice Cooper together. And I'd never met Jimmy and Scott Goram or Ricky. I mean, they were like mythical to me. They were like from a land far away, which they were from a land far away. And although Scott's from Burbank, and this is a funny story. When I first met them, this is kind of comical. So Jimmy had me down before the audition the night before, down to, they were playing in California. They were on tour with Skid Row. And Jimmy goes, come down to meet the guys before you play. So I went down to this show. It was like 3 hours from my house, but I was like, cool, I'll go down. And I go on the bus, and the first person I meet is Ricky Warwick, and he's like, proper Irish, Northern Ireland. All right, mate, how you doing? All right, doing this whole thing, and killer. And I was like, wow, I've never really met a guy like that before. And then as I went to the back of the bus, Marco Mendoza and I sat with Damon and met those guys. And I was like, looking to meet Scott Goram, and Scott Goram walks into the back lounge of the bus, and I'm just kind of sitting there, and he's like, I'm completely ignorant to anything Scott Goram. I mean, I love Lizzie and I know Scott Goram, but I thought he was English. And he comes in and he's like talking like a surfer guy from the Valley. And I was like, hey, dude, aren't you English? He goes, English? I'm from Glendale. I was like, Glendale? What? He's like, I'm the Glendale gunslinger. And I was like, oh, yeah. It was so funny. That's how I met Scott. And I was like, shit, he's a California guy. So we clicked, you know what I mean, over Taco Bell enchiladas. And we get on great. I mean, so that's how I got in the band. And the funny thing is so I joined at the end of the cycle for the first record tour, and then immediately went in and recorded the second record, Killer Instinct. And it wasn't until I played the bass on the song Soldier's Town, that Scott Goram was like, all right, you're the bass player. Because he has this thing, and he told me later, that until you play on the record, I hear you play under the microscope, I don't really know. And so, yeah, my bass playing on that song, because I did it in like 2 takes. I did a warm-up take, and then I did the take, and he was like, yep, that's the guy. So, yeah, that's how I got the gig. And it's cool. I mean, and I think that, I don't think that if I'm being fair, I don't think that I sat there and went, shit, Scott Goram. I don't think that it was that was what made me want to be in the band. I think it was the songs, the songs that really were appealing to me. And it just so happened that Scott was in the band. So I think it took me like the end of the first tour I did with them to go, dude, that's Scott Goram. Like, boys are back in town. You know what I mean? Chinatown. You know what I mean? Cowboy song. I mean, the guy's a fantastic writer. And this is the other thing I always read, and I kind of like makes me go, what? But I question, if you will, is people are like, well, they sound kind of Thin Lizzy-esque. Like they're kind of Thin Lizzy. I'm like, well, Scott Goram is in our band. He writes the songs with Ricky and Damon. That's just how the dude plays. You know what I mean? He wrote Cowboy Song. He co-wrote Boys Are Back in Town. All those little jazz inflection chords, those are Scott, and that's just how he writes. And if Eddie Van Halen joined a band, it would sound like Van Halen, dude. You know what I mean? That's how he writes. You know what I mean? So yeah.
You have a new album coming out. Actually, it's out. It's out January 20th.
Yeah,
Wrong Side of Paradise. Wrong Side of Paradise. Right, Earache Records. This album, you guys have had this in the can for a little bit, haven't you?
Yes, most of our records, when we record them a little while in advance. It's about the time, the window of opportunity to get all of our schedules together so that we can get into a room to record. And when we live all over the world, I don't think people quite comprehend that some of us are in London, some of us are in Ireland, some of us are in Nashville, some of us are, in California. And so it is an international band, and we do a lot of, but it's weird. It's although we don't necessarily do the rehearsal jam room thing, working up songs, we write from afar, and we're able to get it to a point where it's prepared for pre-production. And then we get together in pre-production. That's when we get together, a week before the records, and then 2 weeks before the record. And then we work the songs up with our producer, and then we record the record. So we usually do it it's become a little further off in the past 3 records, but yeah, probably 9 months to a year prior to release. Yeah, and so we've had this in the can, yeah, about a year, a little over a year. Yep.
And the response has been fantastic. You're selling out of vinyls of it. You're selling out of CDs of it. Everybody seems to love this album. So this must be a huge feather in everyone's cap. Yeah,
I mean, it's a testament to our label. We signed with the new record label on this record. This is our 5th record as Black Star Writers, and it's our first with Earache Records. They've done a fantastic job, and as did Nuclear Blast for us as well. And we appreciate everything Monty Connor and all of them did. But Earache has just been fantastic for us. It's they're very connected, and they're very helpful, and just completely outside of the box on stuff. I mean, they were just running with ideas daily, and it's fantastic to have a label that's so invested in the band as much as the band's invested in it. You know, it's cool. And I was just with Al, the A&R guy, last night. As a matter of fact, this is funny. Here in Los Angeles, they put up billboards for our record. And I was like, my kids were like, "Oh, can we go see your billboard?" And I'm like, "Sure." So it's on Sunset Boulevard. So we got in the car and we went there. And there's one right there, and there's like this building, and there's a second story. I'm like, "Hey, I can get a good photo if I go up on the second story." So I go up on this is yesterday. I go up on the second story, and I take the photo, and I send it like to a group chat with the label people on there. And the A&R guy, Al, goes, "Hey, did you just post this?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, "Where are you at?" I go, I'm at the sign on this street." He goes, "So am I." And he's like right in front of me. They're taking photos as well. So it's like, not only are the band guys excited and driven and just excited to see stuff like that, so are the label guys. So is the A&R people. So it's cool that they're so invested and just like-minded like us. And it shows when you collectively focus your energy on a project together. It creates a synergy for everybody. It starts to create its own momentum, and that's really what's going on right now with this record, and we're excited about it. It's cool. Yeah.
And with the advent of vinyl making its return over the last year or so, you guys gave plenty of collector's items, I would say, to people. You could buy 3 different vinyls. There was a special black and white. There was another one. Are you big into the whole vinyl thing as it's making its resurgence?
I am, and I have I still have my old record player. I have a couple of record players, but I am, and what I do with our Black Star Writers, and I have every record that I've ever done on vinyl except for a few, but I have all the dominant ones on vinyl, and I don't open. So I get one that I don't open, so I get a version of it that just stays like collector's item. And I have a drawer underneath my bed, believe it or not. It's like one of those big long, and it's full of just records that I've done in vinyl. And then I have my everyday players that I have in my slot in my other room over there. Yeah. So I do. I love vinyl. It just reminds me of my childhood, to be honest with you. It reminds me of the crack and pop of that Sunday morning or Saturday morning that my parents would put on Fleetwood Mac's Rumor record, or Sabbath's Masters of Reality, or whatever record was rolling that month. Hey guys, everyone get up, clean your rooms, let's get ready, let's have a good Saturday, 7 a.m. And they would you were like, yeah, you know what I mean? So yeah, it's definitely a throwback to your childhood. And there was an art back in those days when they made records or albums it was, right? And sonically, it just sounds so cool. Something about that analog needle to the vinyl. It just sounds fantastic. So yeah, love it.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah, thank you.
As the bass player in Black Star Writers, do you write any of the lyrics, or is Ricky mainly the guy that does all of that?
Man, if I had something to say as strong as Ricky Warwick did, I would write some lyrics. No, Ricky's the sole lyricist in the band, and for good reason. His, again, goes back to the cultural thing and his observation of our culture and of the worldview is very different than. It's not that it's different; it's just the way he interprets it and he puts it to paper, pen to paper on it, and it has a very interesting spin. And I've never played with anybody that's written like that. And so lyrically, it's all Ricky. Musically, when we do get into a music cycle, and it's not like we're like, okay, guys, time to write a record. It's not like that at all. It's a lot more organic, like oh, I wrote this great. Ricky, you have to comprehend that he writes for a lot of different artists. He just writes for himself, and then some of the ideas make it to different things. Like he wrote uh, with Andy Taylor from Duran Duran for his new record, and he wrote, I mean, almost the whole record with Andy, and so he's just a writer, and so he'll say, "Oh, I wrote this idea, and it sounds so cool," and he'll play it for you over the phone, and you're like, "Wow, just so cool," and he'll sing it and play acoustic, and it makes you say, "Oh, cool, man, I've got an idea too," and so we will all send him our riffs or ideas, and Ricky could easily just go thanks, but no thanks. But he's not like that. He is generally inspired by everyone's ideas, and he takes all of our ideas and he keeps them in his mental catalog, and he'll be working on something. He'll go, oh, I need a riff. Oh, wait a minute. Robert sent me this riff. So like Dancing with the Wrong Girl was a riff that I had sent him a long time ago that he augmented and slowed down and made into that staccato, and that became Dancing with the Wrong Girl. Or like him and Damon Johnson were writing in a writing session at one point, and I just out of happenstance, I didn't even know they were writing together. I sent them this triad riff, ding, 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 and they were writing this song called Cold War Love, and that became a part of Cold War Love. And so it's just, it's not like, it's definitely a band situation. I would never insult Ricky by sending a full lyric done, ooh, sweetie, you look good tonight. Ooh, do I have an appetite? Come on over. He's going to be like, what? You know what I mean? Because that's probably what I would write. So I try to keep in my lane and be realistic to what my strengths are. And if he's receptive to my, guitar riffs, cool. Or bass ideas or whatever, cool, man. But when we get into pre-production, we all just, there's no parameters there. It's not like play this in this, don't move. It's not like that at all. It's we quite literally get together and have a jam, and we record it, like whether it be on a phone or on a Pro Tools setup. We just record the ideas and then we give them to the producer, and they either hear it or they don't. And sometimes they don't hear it. We did a record with Nick Raskulinecz, and it's no slag on Nick. Nick's amazing. But we played this song called Finest Hour. And he was like, no, that song's not. And Ricky and Damon felt so strongly about it. They went to him the next day with acoustic guitars, and they just played it acoustic. And then he got it and went, oh, okay, I get it. And that was our biggest single on that record. And it's not that he didn't see the vision. I just probably weren't playing it, to where it hadn't, as a band, gotten to where it needed to be for the producer to see the vision. But acoustically, for Ricky and Damon to play it, he could hear it more. So the writing process in this band has always been very communal, and Ricky's open to it, man. But don't come to him last minute with an idea when you're in the middle of a pre-production or recording, because he's like, dude, you've had a year. You know what I mean? And I would love. I mean, we do have that blessing of coming in to the pre-production aspect of it with way too many songs. So that's cool. And sometimes songs make it to another record, or ideas or a piece of a riff, because it was strong, but it wasn't it wasn't its time, So yeah, that's the writing of what we do it in this band, which is cool.
You get a couple songs out now from the album, Better Than Saturday Night and Riding Out the Storm. Are you planning to release another one?
We are. We actually have a video done where I just was proofing it last night, and yeah, we do. I don't know if I could say. I mean, can you say? I don't think it's a big deal if we say. I mean, I don't care. You know what I mean? It's that song Catch Yourself On, and it's it is a for me, like when Ricky came to, and this goes back to the idea of just a cultural difference and just different terminology, and when we were in pre-production and we were doing Catch Yourself On, I was like, catch yourself on. I was like, what does that mean? Catch yourself on, like you take a photo of yourself when you're cool or you're turned on, or what? And he's like, no, mate, it means it's a I guess I don't know what terminology, but it's some UK based terminology that I'm sure Irish or whatever that to check yourself, to get a reality and a hold on your ego or whatever. and your narcissism and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, cool. So, but people, don't necessarily, get that. But it's such a great song. I mean, all the songs. I mean, Ricky writes songs to me that really make me think, and I'm in the band with him. So I hope that other people, will listen to the lyrical content and really take a journey with him, because he really takes you on a cool journey. I mean, for me anyways, I find myself, my wife and I will be sitting there listening to one of our records going, oh, wow, that's cool. And I'll call him. I'll go, hey, dude, I don't get it. What does this mean? You know what I mean? And he'll go, oh, that's, and you're like, wow. I was saying this recently. There's a song on our Killer Instinct album, ballad called Blindsided. And Ricky, we were on tour and our bus was parked, and outside the window were like the streets somewhere in England or Europe or somewhere. And there was this homeless couple outside, trying to survive. And he sat there and stared at them for an hour or whatever, or a half hour or whatever, and kept thinking, I wonder what their life was before and what's their life going to be after. And it was just an interesting topic for him to touch on. And again, it touches on, just life today, what's going on. There are a lot of homeless people out there. And this is years ago that he wrote that song and that we released that song. But it's just interesting to see what topics he finds interesting to invest in and to take a journey on. And it's cool, man. He never ceases to surprise us lyrically and song wise. He's an extremely talented individual and a humble guy and a fantastic partner, musical partner and business partner. And yeah, I really have a lot of respect for Ricky. He calls me his favorite bass player, and he's definitely my favorite singer and favorite lyricist. He's amazing. He's an amazing musician. Yeah, he's a good guy.
You brought on a new guitarist in Black Star Riders, Sam Wood from Wayward Sons, another great Ireland-based band. How did you guys come across Sam?
Sam was in a band that opened for us in 2019. And we don't really, I don't really go watch the opening. Man, it's not on anybody. I just kind of go do my own thing, And I caught them a couple of times. He was dating a gal that we knew from the Amorettes, and they were like, "Oh, you should see, Jill's boyfriend's band." So we went and saw Jill's boyfriend's band, and they opened for us. And they were all talking about some other musician in the band, and I was like, "Well, some of that guitar player, dude." He's like Paul Kossoff up there, dude. He's like throwback. He's like in his 30s. I mean, we're older, so he's a kid to us, but he's up there just cool, killer tone, just cool. And I was like, wow, that guy's cool. And I watched him a couple more times, and I met him, and he was a super nice guy. And so, I always just kind of kept his name. We all kept his name kind of on the top of the chalkboard. And so when the opportunity arose for us to, when Christian Martucci joined the band, the intention was, and the understanding was, he's in Stone Sour and he's in Corey Taylor's band, and he was lending himself to us, and we were just making some music together, and it worked fantastically. He's on this record. He recorded the guitars on this record. He actually physically engineered and recorded the guitars on the record at his studio. And so when the opportunity arose and he went back to do Corey's record, which he's doing right now, we needed a guy. And so the first person we thought of was Sam. And it's been fantastic. We've done 2 shows with Sam, and he's awesome. He's exactly as we envisioned. Actually, he's better than we envisioned. He's just fits like a glove. And so for this 10th anniversary tour, he's, playing with Scott and Jimmy, and fortunately for Sam, and we're thankful for Sam, but unfortunately Damon Johnson is booked with Lizzie, and I'm sorry, with Leonard Skinner, and with his brother Kane band, as well as a solo project, that he just unfortunately wasn't able to come. He wanted to. He was like, dude, I want to go so bad. He's our bro, man. We love Damon. Damon's fantastic, and he's a part of this family forever, and everybody. Yeah.
So essentially, this 10th anniversary tour in Europe that's kicking off shortly is kind of bringing everybody that was in the band that you could get back together. Like Scott Goram left earlier last year, and Jimmy DeGrasso's been out for a little bit, and you're kind of bringing them in just for this tour, right?
Correct. Yeah. So we had planned on doing something for the 10th anniversary. We just didn't know what. And when the opportunity arose for us to gather initially it was all of us. It was we even tried to sort it out with Marco. It would have been fantastic to have Marco back on, but Marco's he was doing Journey at the time, and he also has some other stuff going on. And then Damon initially was going to be involved, but he, like I said, his schedule couldn't permit. So yeah, we were able to get Scott and Jimmy, and again, we all get on. It's all family. It's not like we're like, oh, I'll never play with that guy again. It's just, we're realistic. It's this industry is forever in motion, and it's all fluid, and you can't put those expectations on people at our age, and we're not in high school anymore. You left the band, you're done. You know what I mean? Don't ever call me again. And by the way, give me back my guitar cable. It's not. We're adults to some degree. So yeah.
Bands can be like that, though. Their favorite guy leaves the band, and then I'll never listen to that band again, and then they miss all this great music.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, it's. I get it. You can spend your life wallowing in the negativity on that frequency, or you can just go, it is what it is, man. I can't control it. I'm just going to stay up here in my content, happy frequency and just, move on with it. And usually at the end, things aren't as bad as you initially thought they were in certain situations. And for us, it's why be so negative about any of that stuff? It's, I wish my friends well. I wish all my partners well. If they don't feel like this is, should be a part of their journey anymore, I can't begrudge them that. It's just part of life, just it happens,
Are you guys going to be able to make it over to the U.S.? I think the last time I saw you was Saxon and Priest. That was a few
18.
years back. Yeah.
Yeah, 18. Yeah, just before the pandemic. Yes, that's our intention. There's nothing on the books yet, but we're definitely in the process of trying to sort that. And, for a band like us, it's an unfortunate reality is it has to be realistic because we are a company and we are a business and we are adults. And so, yeah, we're just weighing our options, and there are some options right now. We're just trying to see what's best for the brand, the band, and for, the fans. Yeah, it's just, we have to be realistic about the territories that we hit. And yeah, so our intention is absolutely to come here again, for sure.
And you're also a member of Ricky Warwick's solo band, the Fighting Hearts. Are you working on any new material for that?
I'm not a member of that band. I just recorded his records. Ricky. When I first joined the band, Black Star Writers, the first thing I ever did was like the week after I joined the band, he's like, "Hey, do you want to play on my solo record?" And I was like, "Sure," So I played, I think, 5 or 6 tracks on the Patsy Cline album, and then I recorded the entire last record. But I'm not in his band. No, I'm in Black Star Writers. We keep those separate. But he calls me his favorite bass player once again, and I think that's very kind of him, and I'm appreciative. But no, I've helped him out on one run of dates, but it's not helped him out. I did one run of dates, but no, I'm not in the band. He actually has a bass player. His name's Richard, and Richard's in the band. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you working with any other projects when you have downtime from Black Star Writers?
Oh yeah. I do a lot of different things, and but currently the past year and a half I've been subbing for Jerry Dixon from Warrant, and and so I go this weekend with Warrant. I do this week actually. I leave tomorrow, Tuesday, and I'm gone for 6 or 7 days. I've been doing that for about since June of 21. And Jerry and I have known each other since we were kids, 15 years old, and Eric and we've all known each other forever. And they're fantastic people. And Jerry's just taking a break. Everything's fine. He's still in the band. He runs it. He's the manager of the band, and he's a great guy. And he just needed some time off and asked me to sub for him. So I've been doing that for the past year and a half. And I do a ton of other projects. I mean, I'm constantly doing other things. And Brent Woods, who I played in Vince's band on the second record with, he and I do a tremendous amount of stuff as well together. So yeah, I this is what I do for a living. I'm a working musician, and yeah, it's very cool. Yes.
Do you keep in touch with anybody on either side of the RATT organization?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I talked to Stephen Piercy the other day. I've actually been subbing some shows with Piercy too. His bass player, for whatever reason, they parted ways, and he was like, "Can you help me with some shows?" I was like, "For sure." I love Steven. Steven's one of my favorite people in music and in life, and he was the one who brought me into RATT in '96, and so I'm forever grateful for him. I talk to Blotzer all the time. I mean, Blotzer and I are constantly like, sending face memes and all this crap together. We always just, and Carlos Cavazzo and I talked recently, and yeah, man. I mean, I love the RATT guys. That was a great experience. I mean, it was 16 years of my life, and I absolutely enjoyed and had a blast with every minute of it. You know what I mean? And it's tumultuous as it seems in the public. It's absolutely as advertised. But I have faith and hope for those guys, that the four original guys will rally around Steven's situation right now and get back together, and hopefully with Carlos and those guys could do something. That's my hope for them. Whether or not it's going to happen is, who knows? It's weird. Rock and roll is rock and roll. And my friend Kerry Kelly always says, too much talking, not enough rocking. You know what I mean? And that's really the truth of that situation, is that those guys, they all individually feel like they're right and that they have the best vision for the band. I think Steven is the original guy who owned the band, and he was the one who started and brought everyone in. And I think collectively they created this great thing together, the five original guys. And my hope is that they're able to eventually get beyond it, because they're not getting any younger, and give the RATT fans, me included, a fantastic experience to be able to go, thank you, but you can't force people, people get set in their ways, and it is what it is.
Well, hopefully they can see all these legends that are moving on recently to the great gig in the sky, and they can see that life is too short, and maybe it's time to put away kind of the issues.
I hope so. I hope so. I mean, I don't hold my breath, but and it's for me, it's just the pettiness in life. It's like, it goes back to that frequency thing. Do you want to focus on the negative petty stuff, or do you just want to, it's just, everyone's situations are different, and I'm just one it's just a fan's observation, although I was in the band for a long time and I do understand the underlying dynamics. And I've been involved in a lot of the current dynamics. For some reason, because in my tenure in the band, you create friendships, and some people you don't. And I learned this from Steve Stevens and Vince Neil when I played with them in Vince's band in the early '90s. Just because you're in a band with people doesn't necessarily mean you guys are friends. It's just a business arrangement to some degree. And it's unrealistic to have the expectation of friendship after that situation. And the same thing goes with RATT. I left the band hoping to remain friends with everybody, but I didn't. And I remained friends with 90% of the people. But you just don't connect on certain levels with other people, and that's okay. It's okay to be okay with that. You just wish those people well and go, I love you and I appreciate our time together, and rock on.
Well, those are all the questions I have for you today, Robert. The new album the new album by Black Star Riders is Wrong Side of Paradise. It's out now through Earache Records. Fantastic album. You should be very proud of it.
Thank you so much. We are. And thank you for having me on. I appreciate it very much. And hopefully our paths will cross in the coming years. And best of luck to you. And thank you so much for taking the time to show interest in our band. And hopefully we'll continue to do records that you can listen to and enjoy.
Once again, I want to thank Robert Crane of Black Star Riders for coming on the Rock is George podcast. Be sure to check out their latest album, Wrong Side of Paradise, out now through Earache Records. Head over to your favorite music streaming platform. Take a listen to the album. If you like what you hear, buy a physical copy. Support the artist. For all things Black Star Riders, head over to their official website, blackstarriders.com. I also want to thank Hadley Wolfram of Chipster PR and Earache Records for making this interview possible. You've been great. I've been George Dionne. I hope to see you for 100 more.